The city of York. A stone's throw from the Minster is a rather upmarket B&B.
Good morning. Everybody found everything? Well done. Sleep well.
It's a single room. It has basin.
Single rooms are a snip at £23 a night, £58 for a double. En suite.
Goodbye. Goodbye now. Everybody's in, which is fantastic. What's more, not only in, but working. What more could a woman ask?
But this is no ordinary B&B. The landlady is a nun. This is the story of how Britain's oldest convent school became a guest house for tourists. The Roman Catholic Bar Convent occupies 6 spacious Georgian houses. Today it's home to just 20 nuns, who over the last 15 years have lived through turbulent change, not least giving up the school their order had run for 3 centuries. The woman who's seen them through is the superior, Sister Agatha Leach.
I try every morning to go for a run up to the 13th furlong to make my meditation. And I have to say it's mostly walking, but I do go a bit of running as well. At home, the telephone rings, something happens, and I don't have that time to be totally alone. So it's my way of doing the thing that's most important to me, to sort of set the compass right and be with my God first thing in the morning.
Sister Agatha was born Shirley Leach 69 years ago, the youngest of 4 children. Her prosperous upper-class family lived in a manor house in Kent.
I was a child, my time. I mean, I loved the dances and films and going out. Well, one was young and foolish. I don't think I ever had a thought other than getting married, having lots of children, and very much continuing the type of life that I'd been brought up to. I can remember learning the marriage service of Pat. I was really awfully good on that.
By the time she was 18, Shirley was unofficially engaged. She even got as far as drawing up her wedding list.
I was writing about what I thought would be nice dining room chairs, and I just knew. I just knew that those dining room chairs were not something that I was ever going to need. And I suppose once I knew I'd always known. And that's a very difficult thing to understand, because somewhere subconsciously, I suppose I suddenly knew that God had always been the center of my being.
In 1953, at 21, Shirley Leach became Sister Agatha of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, a prestigious teaching order. It was founded in the 17th century by Mary Ward, a pioneer of women's education. Her sister nuns set up one of the first Catholic girls' schools in the country, at the Bar Convent in 1686. Sister Agatha found herself alongside Sister Gregory, who, after much heart-searching, had joined the order in 1936, after graduating from Cambridge.
Well, it was all very, very painful indeed, because I was the only Catholic in the family, and was certain to never been a nun in the family. And when I said I wanted to be a nun, they sort of felt it was the breakup of the family, and they were absolutely devastated, and it was very, very painful.
Sister Gregory's young brother tried everything to dissuade her.
He came and begged me to go home, which I found very, difficult. His fearful tease before I entered. We were in a bookshop once, and there were two nuns in a very ugly habit and rather plain-looking people, and he came up to me and he said, "That's what you look like." So I said, "Oh, I don't mind." And he said, "You don't mind? Have another look."
Sister Gregory was a head teacher and superior for 26 years. Since her retirement, she has chronicled the entire history of the Bar Convent. Her archive contains dozens of documents describing the lives of former pupils.
We have one bill here. The whole story is told just in this single page. And this is the page they billed for Mary Clifton in 1767. And to begin with, she's a very ordinary child. She has cambric for her ruffles, pomatum for her hair. And then halfway down the page, she has a fire in her bedchamber, and that was a luxury. And then we have a doctor, a surgeon, an apothecary, and then, sadly, we come to a coffin, candles, and then the final item is wine and biscuits at the funeral. So we have to put in, between those lines, all the anxiety and the sorrow, but there are the facts told in just a conventional bill.
Over the centuries, the nuns have put their stamp on generations of convent girls. When Sister Agatha joined, the order had 6 schools around Britain. She taught at their convent in Ascot in Surrey before venturing north to the Bar Convent.
I was meant to be teaching justice and peace in the RE, and I used to say there was no justice and very little peace, which I expect a lot of people have always talked about. But I loved the children, and to begin with, I remember them saying, "We don't understand a word she's saying, but we like her." And I was the same with them, because I wasn't used to the Yorkshire dialect.
The pupils were looked after by 2 classes of nuns: choir nuns like Sister Agatha and lay sisters.
We're all one now, but I was a lay sister, and a lay sister means that you do all the housework, the cooking, the cleaning, whereas the choir nuns do all the teaching. You see, in a way, we couldn't manage without each other, because they needed us for the work, and we needed them to look after the children, look after the school.
This was a leftover from Victorian days, I suppose, even earlier, when, there were servants and so on. And obviously it was very unsuitable in religious life to have some people who were sort of almost second-rate citizens, It was very unsuitable. And I think all religious orders were a long time in getting rid of them. They should have got rid of them long ago. And we did in the end.
The lay sisters had separate training and wore simpler habits. The class division was finally abolished in 1953.
I never minded, even when I was a young nun, I never minded it. We used to have such fun. One night in the North Ship, we pushed back all the tables and chairs, and we took our shoes off, and we danced. We danced for half an hour.
So you're pretty wild.
I was, I did, right, I was. Still am a bit.
Nowadays, everyone lends a hand with the chores. The nuns look forward to Sister Agatha's suppers. She learned to cook at finishing school.
The community have got rather a thing anti-tomato at the moment, because they have rather a lot, and so this has got some red peppers in it, and the aubergine, and the courgette, and then I had some cooked potatoes.
Cooking's not my thing. I can produce a meal, but it takes me the whole day, whereas Sister Agatha can produce a meal in about 3/4 of an hour. Then that's her thing.
Most of them rather like potatoes, and they like it slightly moist, so I put in a little bit of Maureen's wine, because once wine is opened, as you all know, you've got to use it, which is such a happy situation. I must get this pie into the oven, otherwise it won't be ready.
Over the years, the nuns' living conditions have changed beyond all recognition.
Now I'm going to show you a nun's bedroom, which is my room. When I joined, all we had was a bed and a chest of drawers and a screen, because one shared a room with somebody else. So there would be the screen between us. We had a jug and basin, and the water, we poured it out the night before, and the water actually would be frozen in it in the morning. We woke up quite well on the strength of that. I suppose it was part of the feeling of being a nun, all these things which sort of gave you the feeling, gosh, this really is it.
When I first entered, I lived in a cell. I had a bed, I had a basin, I had a cupboard. We didn't have possessions, we didn't have money.
Sister Cecilia took the traditional vows of poverty, chastity and obedience at the end of the 1960s.
In those early years, I was profoundly happy teaching and very fulfilled. And I think perhaps my questions about religious life were not so great then as they have been more recently.
10 years after taking holy orders, Sister Cecilia's vows were put to the test.
I fell in love and did have to decide, is this way of life for me?
How old were you when you fell in love with this man?
In my middle 30s.
So, and 10 years is quite a long time to really have settled down into your...
Oh, yes.
So did it rock you?
Totally. It was wonderful, but it did rock me, yes, absolutely.
You say wonderful, but it sounds quite traumatic.
Well, I think falling in love, it is wonderful. But, there were a lot of decisions. I wasn't free, and I needed to think how to live. It was only then, really, that I faced what the vow of chastity really means.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
The oldest sisters live in St. Joseph's, the order's retirement home attached to the Bar Convent. They remember the good old days when nuns dressed like nuns and everybody wore a habit.
Yes, that's where Wendy and I have been for the weekend.
I think that we ought to be recognised for whom we are. And I think going about it, absolutely. And as for trousers, I think the General Superior ought to have come down on them ages ago, never allowed them. I think it's absolutely outrageous.
It's marvellous. You never have to think what you've got to wear. And it does for everything. You couldn't get anything more convenient.
I'm dressed in those outrageous trousers that Sister has just mentioned.
Well, I've got my habit in here, which I loved wearing, and have a great respect for it. I'll try and put on my veil now. Let's see if I got it right. I have to see if I got it correct. There we are.
You look like a nun.
I am a nun, Jenny. 100% nun. But I wouldn't, I think, quite be in a bright green thing as a nun, do you think? Rather pink nun from all the sun we've been having.
I loved my habit, but when I heard that we could get out of it, I thought, why not? It was lovely because you can take off the blouse and wash it and the skirt and wash it. We couldn't with the habits because we only had the one.
Was it murder to wash?
No, they were very easy. I used to drip dry mine.
Where's your habit now?
And well, it was in the dustbin. It went into the dustbin, that's what I put it. Because it was finished. It was absolutely worn out.
As religious life adapted to the modern world, so too did the school. By the 1950s, the Bar Convent had become a highly successful grant-maintained grammar school. But in the late 70s, York decided to go comprehensive and the school had to either remain in the state system or go private. Sister Agatha had no doubt which path to take.
To serve the people of York, it was terribly important that we didn't become independent, because a lot of our pupils couldn't have afforded any fees. I think I was so hopelessly ignorant, although I was full of enthusiasm about that, and imagined that we would run this comprehensive school. I don't know where I thought the money would drop from the sky, but of course in reality it's often a case of cash, isn't it? And so when I saw what would be required financially, there was absolutely no way in which we could fit a bill, which was something like 2 million to do the complete changeover, which we did to have.
In 1985, the nuns finally gave up their school. The Bar Convent Grammar School became All Saints Comprehensive. 300 years of dedication to teaching by the sisters had come to an end.
We weren't able to envisage that somebody else might be able to take over from us. It was something unthought of, unheard of. So in a sense, all that had to be stripped away from us.
I think for some it was incredibly painful, because they had lived their entire life in education, and to think beyond that and think, well, I'm going to do something else or in a different environment was pretty threatening, I think, for some people.
The sisters of the Bar Convent still had their faith, but they had lost their purpose in life. Their search for a new mission was to bring them to the brink of bankruptcy. When the nuns lost the school, they not only lost their role in life, they also lost their income.
That's reduced. That's good. Do you know I got the most fantastic sausages from you the other day? It's 69, cheaper than any other. 500 grams, that's a lot. You could save it up and go to dashing places, but for us, the suddenly find a little supplement of £2.50 is great excitement.
The biggest drain on resources was the redundant school buildings.
I don't know if you ever lived in a listed building and had to keep the roof on and heating. Just keeping this thing rainproof and warm enough so that it doesn't all collapse with the damp is pretty well enough to bankrupt anybody.
Excellent. We're off to Jiff and a throwaway camper.
It's a very old building. It's historically so important. We have a responsibility to keep the roof over our heads. But it's a complete nightmare, really, in many ways. It certainly requires a bit of money.
You got a credit card?
Complete nightmare, really, in many ways.
Yes.
It's certainly...
What do you think? How does it get one shot?
The community all do their bit to help bring in the much-needed cash. Each nun gets £70 a month for personal expenses.
So I use £2 of my pocket money, hoping that the right numbers will come up. And I choose 3 for the Trinity, 5 because it's a feast day of St. Agatha, and the rest are birthdays.
I want to make this absolutely clear that we've taken vows of obedience and poverty, and therefore we live without money of our own, and we do this. Well, if we were a large sum, it would perhaps bring security to the Bar Convent, but even if it wasn't large enough for that, there's quite a lot of capital expenditure.
I've never got more than £10, and we're allowed to keep that, but I'm hoping to be very useful to have something so that it could be invested for the convent.
But it's a bit of a thrill doing the lottery.
Oh, it's rather fun, yes, certainly. Well, it's nearly always disappointment, but still, yes, it is a thrill, I agree. Yes.
Christine, do you do the lottery at all?
No, I do scratch cards.
The nuns' answer to their financial problems was to convert part of the convent into a simple museum dedicated to the life of the order's founder, Mary Ward. But experts persuaded the sisters to launch a much more ambitious project.
The person who was advising us said, you must think big. And my goodness, we have thought big.
So big, the nuns found themselves investing in a conference centre, a cafe and a museum, complete with a security system worthy of the crown jewels.
All the ceilings had to have very special concrete so that people couldn't, get through to the priceless things. But actually there isn't anything very priceless here. We spent $1 million in setting up everything. And really where I think I was particularly stupid is that I presumed from day one, with the doors opened, as the children streamed in and thousands of people went round the museum, we would have an income. In reality, that didn't happen. The children came, but for the museum, we had a curator, an assistant curator, security staff, secretaries, you name it. And so we immediately got into debt, heavy debt, bad debt, great anxiety.
Facing bankruptcy, the museum closed for a year and Sister Agatha went looking for benefactors.
Thank you.
She wangled a meeting with John Paul Getty, one of the richest men in England. Back in the convent, the nuns were quite literally praying for success.
So I went and explained that all the nuns were on their knees, as we were on our knees. And I went to him and I said, they're all there, and some of them are quite elderly. And so I said, we saw the telephone beside him, and I went to him and I said, there, when you said yes. So he said, well, what is it that you need? I said, he said, I've never been asked for $250,000 just like that. And so I said, well, it was a new experience. And so then he said, well, I will give you half that. And I said, well, that actually is the sum I need.
To raise even more cash, the nuns sold the centerpiece of their art collection. The National Gallery bought Lesueur's Crucifixion for £400,000. Today, a copy stands in its place.
It was invested so that we could bring in our business manager, because we had by that time realized that one can't go on asking people for money and appearing to lose it rather swiftly afterwards.
Enter Richard Macefield and a new business, Bar Convent Enterprises.
There was no income-driven revenue coming into the place at all. The cafe wasn't working, the museum wasn't open, the conference centre was there as a collection of one room, in fact, with some very out-of-date equipment. So I built myself a business plan with very achievable goals, and over the passage of perhaps 2 years, we then had everything more or less up and running.
Sister Agatha decided that she would go into B&B. So a very generous man called, I think, Paul Getty, either gave us or lent us the money to do it. So we had the whole house gutted. And we went into B&B and we have never looked back.
Now 80, Sister Christine gets up at 6:30 every morning to help run the B&B. Her first task, to open up the building.
You can do an awful lot for people when you can work, And I love looking after people as well. I love all my work. I love the cooking. But I do love laundry.
When are you going to take a rest, Christine? even retire?
I will never retire. Oh Lord, no. Why should I? Well, I mean, you wouldn't exactly call this hard work, would you? You. No, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. I go to breakfast now.
Good morning. I gather we got a
5 years on, Bar Convent Enterprises, with museum, shop, cafe, conference facilities and B&B, is beginning to break even.
You know you're going to be in AVR1.
Oh, right, the Israel track coming in this morning, 11
Oh,
o'clock.
good. Have they paid yet?
That's a good question.
You spend everything. These are. Was that the first one? 40. Is this me?
I think at the moment there is some chance of us being viable. And that's what we want to be. We don't want to make money.
I gather you've got a group coming
Yes,
in rail track late.
And is a cafe and conference facilities and B&B, is this compatible with spiritual life, do you think?
Oh, amazingly. I don't see spiritual life in a linear way at all. It is that integration of what is seen to be pious and spiritual with the absolute, the earthly, the mundane, the ordinary.
Some people ask, why aren't you doing something like working for the homeless full time? We chose to do a B&B because I would not be able to look after the homeless people, because you have got to have enormous energy, which I certainly would have had up to the age of 50. I could have done that kind of work, but at that time I was busy teaching in a school.
Hello, sister. Thank you very much, Sister Anthony. Oh, very good.
That was a very nice cup of tea.
Although the Bar Convent's now in the black, costs are rising for the order every year.
Oh, look at the doll.
The 5 oldest nuns need 24-hour nursing care, and the others aren't getting any younger.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Anthony. Happy birthday to you.
Sister Agatha makes extra money for the convent with regular speaking engagements. In a good year, she brings in donations of more than £1,000.
I'm giving a talk to the district and the Scunthorpe Ladies Luncheon Club. And they say they've got about 260 members.
I gather from the ladies of Scunthorpe that when they balloted their members, they actually wanted Harrison Ford or Cynthia Payne, but they've got you.
Oh, what bad luck. I never knew about that. Who did they think of? Harrison Ford? Isn't that awful? I'm so ignorant, I don't know.
Harrison Ford's a sexy film star.
Oh, right. Well, that is bad luck. Why did they get me? How did that happen?
Now, another little joke. One evening the Lord said to Peter, Peter, I'm very worried. There are very strange people getting into heaven nowadays. And Peter looked at him and he said, but why should you be surprised? It's that woman, your mother. She drags everybody into heaven.
I am, as you see, a nun. Well, at least you mightn't see I'm a nun, but I'm wearing my ring and I'm wearing my cross, and I am Sister Agatha.
The hand was all to my hand.
My mother said, fish and guests go off after 3 days. So anybody staying with you for over 3 days, just say, there's a terribly nice convent over in York. All right. Look us up, we're www, is it man? We say www.bar.convent.org.uk. I tell you something which I think is really quite funny. The other day, there was going to be a lecture, as I thought, you're going to know what I'm going to say, on Chippendale, and we have country Chippendale chairs. So I thought, well, as it was in York, perhaps as a community we might go and listen to this lecture on Chippendale until somebody explained to me in words of one syllable that the Chippendales were not exactly anything to do with the cabinet makers of the 18th century.
So were you tempted to go?
Good heavens, no.
Richard has his own money-making schemes. He plans to transform the cellar into storage space for local businesses by evicting 2 of the convent's redundant residents.
What have you got under there? What's that?
Well, this one's a statue of Christ. Behind at the back we have, this was an exhibit that was in my office, and he represents one of the saints introducing the museum. I think it's St. Paulinus, and he had a tape recorder and he pressed a button and he said, "Welcome to the Bar Convent."
Don't you think it's time you changed your numbers?
No, sister.
No, because you'll never win it if you don't.
No, you don't understand
No, I don't.
the statistics of probability.
Mm-hmm. I'm only going by the lady in York, and she went out this morning and she said, I'm going to change my numbers, and that was the morning she won the lottery.
I'd like to know her name and address, because I doubt that story very much.
No, I don't. See.
Big money balls!
Oh, now for the lucky one.
The first house is number 20. Completed millionaire brokers and 10 Wednesdays.
No?
59. Next. Is number 2.
Yes, that's that. Is it you? Yeah. What have you got? One each?
Each 3, 1 here, 2.
21.
It's one of your favourite shows.
I think some of the quizzes are rather good. We
I like the quizzes. I love the quizzes.
Magnus
We
Magnuson.
enjoy, yes, Mastermind and University Challenge.
That's more your thing, is it?
I enjoy
Sister
that
Gregory's not
enormously.
I help her out.
If pigs will fly. Good night, everybody. God bless you.
The Bar Convent nuns keep what links they can with the school they lost in 1985. The convent chapel is the venue for the end-of-year school service. Sister Gregory gives new pupils a tour of the convent.
Those windows are really the chapel windows.
And the school tea lady is Sister Christine.
Do you want a coffee? Coffee? Is that what you want?
Sister Agatha shows off the convent's prized relic to new pupils. It's the 400-year-old hand of a local Catholic martyr, Margaret Clitheroe.
If you don't want to look, just turn away your faces. No reason why you should, but I want you to remember she was a mother, she was a woman, and she did a trade. Yes?
Is it actually a real hand?
It's her real hand. Yes. But don't look if you don't want to. That is her real right hand. Yes, if you want to see it, right. All right? You want to see? Yes, that's all right. You come up. And then have a look at the priest hiding there. You don't have to look if you don't want to. If you want that. Well, you do? Yes, that's all right. You can come up and have a look.
With their teaching role gone, each nun has found her own way of serving the community. Some visit prisons, others hospitals. Every afternoon, 76-year-old Sister Claire sets out on her own personal mission. Sister Cecilia leads spiritual sessions for the public at the convent's pastoral centre. Today, it's praying with clay.
Judy, what size bit do you want? The music that's going to be on as background, it's whales singing with flute music.
So, hello, how are you today? How are you today? Okay? Or not too good? How's yourself? Okay today? Good, that's right. And you're okay too, you're all okay.
God bless you.
Just turn to the Father. Just turn to the Son. And finally, just turn to the Spirit. And when you're ready, just turn to the clay.
You take care and be happy, because we're all going to die.
We were born to die.
Of course we were. Every single one of us is going to die. Oh, I feel very bad taking it. All right. I'll give it to somebody who's in greater need than you are.
Thank you.
I will. And God bless you for it.
Many of the elderly nuns feel comfortable with the Catholicism they grew up with.
The thing is, I'm very old enough, and I'm, not out for new things so much. Well, I am up for new things. Harry Potter, for example. I like old things as well. And this dear little missal, I had it ever since I was at school, all in Latin, and that's what we used to have in those days. I still go on saying the Mass to myself in Latin. You see, I'm very old-fashioned, and that's what it is.
Twice a week, Father Tommy Mylod visits the convent to hold Mass for the nuns too infirm to make it to the convent chapel. The service is held in a specially consecrated bedroom.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
How are you? Good, good. In spite of the weather, yes. It's been a very bad day, hasn't it? Very bad. Smile from this, from the sister there. Yes, lovely smile. Wonderful. Thank you. I am the beginning and the end of all things. I have met death.
As these nuns grow older, the order must face another reality. Today, there are no novices waiting to join.
And of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
No young people like to commit themselves to life now. And I think that is very significant. And the other thing is that, you see, there are so many ways in which they can do good works without being a nun. At one time, if you really wanted to dedicate your life to doing good, being a nun was perhaps the obvious way.
The body of Christ.
Amen.
The body of Christ.
Amen.
Religious life is not a majority activity. It's a very specific way of life. I think for those for whom it is good, it is a wonderful and enriching way of life. But if it isn't for you, it's disaster. It's 24 hours a day and no release.
And to serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
It's beautiful out there, isn't it? Yes. Yes. The gardening. See you on Thursday. God bless. Bye-bye.
At 51, Sister Cecilia is one of the Bar Convent's youngest nuns. She knows from personal experience the demands of religious life.
There is no doubt about it. I mean, I would love to get married. I'd love to have children. I'd love to have independence. Humanly speaking. I'd love all of those. I suppose I have to keep coming back to saying, well, why am I still here? And is this just because I don't get out or didn't dare get out? And that's quite, I do find myself challenging myself at times. But I know in my heart of hearts I'm here because there's no other place that would give me that level of joy, of profound inner peace, of fulfillment. And above all that, in a relationship with God, which, though can be a huge struggle at times and a pain in the neck at other times, is what keeps me going, I think.
Today, the order is trying hard to modernize. At the Bar Convent this autumn, out goes Sister Clare's ancient wage slip machine.
There we are. Magic. There's the wage slip.
And in comes a new computer system.
Exams.
Sister Agatha is getting to grips with email.
I've got to go to, is that the cat thing?
Yes.
At? And then,
No, we haven't done that yet. I'm sorry. We'll go back to at again. This one here.
Sister Cecilia is the provincial, the head of the order in England. Today she's in London to meet her council. On the agenda, a controversial plan to modernise the order by changing its name from the Institute to the Blessed Virgin Mary, or IBVM.
I mean, essentially, we're talking about a change of brand name and the enormous financial investment that would have to go into that.
But I think also our difficulty is our history, because we never had a brand name.
That's it, we are pretty widely known as the IDMV or whatever it is.
And there we are. We're connected to the remote computer, and it's just making sure that we are who we are. Now you begin to see the two little
people talking. They are there.
Now it's
sending mail. Authorising you to
now it's checking.
Yes.
It's happened anything. So that's all gone.
Has it gone?
Yeah.
Isn't that absolutely amazing? It has gone to America, and there we are.
Every year, the nuns must make an 8-day retreat to recharge their spiritual batteries. Sister Agatha is on retreat at Whitby in North Yorkshire.
The reason why one goes on retreat is to order one's life. During the year, one's working at such a pitch that one perhaps doesn't take the time to reflect in the way that is necessary if you're going to keep your values in the right direction. If you think of the life of Christ, that he actually bothered to go to pray on his own and to speak with the Father. If he needed to do that, for heaven's sake, Agatha needs to do that.
When I look back at my own vocation, I had a good life. I had, as you might say, prospects. I had a loving family, loving friends. And at some stage, when I was 20, I answered that call to leave what was secure, what was possible. And so all the way through my retreat, I've been reflecting on this, and I've been reflecting on this faith journey, leaving what was to what was something else, and what has happened over those years.
Do you have to face doubt?
I suppose I find that, if you like, a barrier, because I find it very difficult to doubt. In a sense, it would put everything at risk. And I think that people who say, Agatha, don't you ever doubt? And the answer is, I can't.
You don't dare.
If God doesn't exist, I don't either, and that I find difficult.
Sister Agatha is stepping down as superior and will no longer be responsible for the spiritual welfare of the other nuns. She's taking a 6-month sabbatical and has fixed herself a free holiday as a guide on a religious tour.
The head thing is what's something for travelling. I'm going to Abrahamica. I'm taking a group there at the end of July, and I'm sure it's going to be scorching.
She's carried the burden of responsibility for Bar Convent for years now. And it's time that she could do what she feels most drawn to do without some of the responsibility.
I'm rather bad on yellows normally. Is that okay, or was it a bit? Yes, I think so. I think I have to have something a bit stronger, don't I?
I think it'd be true to say that without her determination and drive, I don't know where we'd be now. I mean, she's immensely important in the history of the bar. But we haven't lost her because she'll be coming back in a different role. And Agatha is always Agatha.
Is that better? That's better, isn't it? Right.
I miss her when she's on sabbatical. But she'll come back and she'll live here and she'll run the B&B, which is great.
Goodbye. Isn't that lovely? Goodbye. Aren't they looking gorgeous? I always wish the 12s and 10s were possible, but they just aren't.
Sister Agatha is already planning her speaking engagements for her return.
I'm obviously stopping when I have my sabbatical in September, but I've already got about 10 for when I come back next March, so that's good. I've got somebody coming behind me, like GU. Well, they can pass me, who'll be quiet. I mustn't suffer from road rage.
And next week's witness profiles controversial Catholic Archbishop Cardinal Thomas